Welcome to another vintage fishing reel service video. In this episode, I'm going to be working on a Johnson Laker 140B. And so the Laker model 140, so there are basically four versions. The 140, the 140A, the 140B, and the 140C. So the first one was just the 140, and that came out in 1964 and ran until 1970. The 140A went from 1971 to 72. The B, which is what this one is, ran from 1973 to 1976. And then they came out in 1977 with the 140C that ran probably to the end of the decade, 1979 or 1980. So the nice thing about the B and the C, from what I understand, is that rather than a kind of a serrated spinner head for the line pickup, you had a pickup pin. So this is again a Johnson Laker Model 140B. Made sometime between 1973 and 1976. So, one thing you'll notice about this, if I can get this cover back on, what is this? St. or reverse threaded, is it? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, and it looks kind of pink or champagne colored. But if you take a look on this side, it's red. And apparently most of the Lakers are red. Apparently there might be another color or two out there, maybe. But I think most of them are red. But this one lesson is if you care about your reels fading, this is anodized aluminum, don't keep them in direct sunlight because they obviously do fade. I've got another very, very rare reel that I'll be doing in an upcoming episode that I thought, well, maybe there are two different color versions because every one I saw was sort of red, and the one I have is mostly gold, except you can still see a little bit of red where it wasn't in the direct light, and so it turned the red to gold. In this case, it turned the red into a pink or even champagne color, and almost in some areas it's it's almost down to silver. So I wouldn't keep them in direct sunlight if you're interested in maintaining the color. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. And take the cap off and go ahead and remove the nut on the spinner head. And remove the spinner head, and I don't see any evidence of cuts in the spinner head, and run my fingernail over that, no cuts, and I don't see any cuts in the pickup pin, so that's always good. Put that in the parts tray. These are really nice, and I like these clips. They're really nice and easy to take off. Now this one, the drag puts pressure on the inside of the spool here, so we want to make sure that the drag is all the way off, because it's going to be a whole heck of a lot easier to get the spool out. And so the drag it says it's completely off, so we should be safe to pull that spool out of there without much trouble. And believe it or not, it's nicely lubricated in there. Looks like oil or very low viscosity grease, and no line on there. So we can put that in the parts tray. And then you've got this series of, I assume, nylon type drag washers. This is only about the second or third Johnson I've ever done, but you know, if that drag is off, then that little lever that goes in there shouldn't be exerting any force on those. But when I look in there, you can see this is kind of a little dog-legged, not quite dog-legged, but lever that goes through the, I don't know if you call it the baffle plate or what the heck you call it, but it goes through to the other side where the adjuster screw affects it. And so when it's completely off, it won't be putting pressure against this side, and presumably when it's on the lowest drag out, I'll be able to pull these off. But it looks kind of, I don't know if you can see it, kind of crooked in there. So we'll see if that affects our ability to get these drag rings off of there. Let's try. Oh, here we go. So maybe just gently prying up on those. Working my way around. Okay, so there's that one. I'm going to put that, okay, and I'm just going to remember the order of these. That one goes in the, so that one goes on top. That narrower one goes in the middle. I assume the one on the bottom is pretty much the same as the one on the top. We'll see. That thing's kind of twisty in there. Well, usually you would think that would be sort of kind of straight across rather than sort of twisted like that. I don't know what's going on there, but we'll find out. So that one goes on first, and it does appear, to me anyway, to be the same exact design as the one that went on last. So there's two that are essentially the same, and then a middle that's a little bit narrower. Okay, so now we can start thinking about removing the rear cap here. And so it looks like this is going to come off kind of like a Zebco 202 or something like that, where you kind of tilt it like that and then sneak it over the drag adjuster there. Looks like this thing has some kind of a mechanism to lock the button. And so here's the drag adjuster. Let's just take a look. Yeah, I can feel it doing something, but I mean, it just, the diameter of the of this, I don't know if you call it a cam or what, obviously changes as you spin it around, but I'm just trying to figure out, see how it, I guess, okay, so that's basically how you apply drag. I think it twists it like this, so I think it actually twists that thing like that, and then when you let off of it, it kind of goes, when you reduce the drag, it kind of flattens it back out. But at any rate, it changes the tension on the outside of those, or on the inside of those drag rings, and creates the drag. So I don't think I really, well, I don't think I really need to take, this can come off with a screw, but I don't really see it. It's really well lubricated. I don't really see any. If I don't want to take it off, I don't have to. But it would be pretty easy to do. And then this, yeah, well, let's just do it. Okay, so there's that. And then this thing should just pop out of there. A little drag lever. Man, that thing, I don't know if somebody tried to grab with that with a pair of pliers or something, but that's all, oh, come on. That's all marred up. Oh, why that thing won't focus. There it is. That's all boogered up. I don't know what happened there. All right, now we can take off the handle. That's got kind of a locking nut on there. And of course you have your handle, and that looks like some kind of a nylon or Nalgene washer behind that. And now it should be just as simple as popping out the main gear. Again, you know, you always have to go through them when you first get one, because you just have no idea the extent to which it's been serviced. But I would say this, there's no grease on the, where's the pinion gear? There it is. The pinion gear and this and the main gear are dry. There's plenty of oil on this shaft and so on. And it looks like there's some kind of little shim washer in there. And your main gear. So remember that. And this is like cast metal. This is not plastic. That's, for being a, you know, entry level reel, that's high quality metal there. So basically it's all metal except for the back cover. The rest of it's metal. And of course the knob on the crank. Let's see here. Yeah, so your anti-reverse pawl is sort of riveted in there, so you don't have to worry about taking that out. So that's all there is to disassembly. So we're ready to take all these parts over to the sink, scrub them with a toothbrush and some hot water and Dawn dish soap and a little WD-40 down in the journals where the shafts go, so on and so forth. And we'll be back just like that. And you can really get a feel for the original color by looking at the inside of that cover versus the outside. Even the side that isn't as faded is still much more faded than the interior. So let's lay out all these parts. And we'll begin with a little bit of steel wool. So we'll start with putting some oil on the main gear shaft and inserting that, working that in there. And some grease and some, before I grease that, I'm going to pull this pinion gear up a bit and just oil underneath there. Work that in. And then we can add our grease to the pinion gear. And our oil to the axle shaft. Now we can take our little lever here, our drag lever, and insert that and put our drag adjustment knob on. And the screw for that. Yeah. And I think we can sneak this back on there. And make sure our drag is at the lowest setting. So that we can try to think the extent to which I want to lubricate these things. Probably wouldn't hurt to just put a light coat of grease on that spool shaft just to help them slide on there a little bit better. Now these things are beveled, so one side of them is flat, and the other side has a bevel to it. And quite frankly, I'm not sure which side goes up and which side goes down. I'm going to put the bevel up, facing up on the first one and facing down on the last one. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I'm going to do, and we'll see if it works. You wonder if these things fit on that tightly when they were new, or whether they've swelled or something over time. So you got to get that lever to come through that little notch there. So then our middle one goes on. This one's the only one that's clearly different than the other two. And sneak that over. And then I'm going to put the bevel side down on this one. I don't know if that's absolutely right or not, but I don't remember seeing the bevel side facing up when I took it apart. So now let's get our spool on there. And put a little grease on that. Oh, I forgot something very important. All this has to come back off. What I forgot to put in was this, which is your drag clicker. And so that side, this with this little nipple on there, is what faces up. And I'm going to bend that up a tad in case it's been sprung over the years. And that'll give us our clicking sound when the drag is being engaged. Alright, now we can put this on and get some idea. Still doesn't make much for a drag clicker. You can hear it, but barely. Alright, so now we're ready for our clip here. Make sure everything is pressed down far enough so you can get your clip in there. Make sure it gets into the groove there, which right now it isn't doing, at least on one side. Oh, I see. So the groove doesn't go all the way around. So this has to go in a certain way, otherwise. Yeah. Alright. Now that I've wiped all the grease and oil off of this thing, we can go ahead and put our handle back on. And these, I don't know if it's stained or if it's just photo damage from exposure to light, but like the button and the knob, I cleaned those really good and it's just not coming off. I don't know if a soak in hydrogen peroxide would whiten that up at all. I don't think it would. I think it's just is the way it is, just from photo deterioration. Little grease on the button, I guess, just to reduce friction. Now we're ready to put on our spinner head. And now we can take this one has several drain holes, so I'm going to put I guess this one screws on, so you're going to end up, in this case, with the pink champagne colored side facing up and some of the boat rash. You can't do anything about that because it screws on, so you can't put that down towards the bottom, but it's seems to be working and good. Seems to be working good now. Now the only thing left to do is put a couple drops of oil into the knob on the handle and work that in good. And let it drain out the bottom. And then clean that up. You see how dark and dirty that is. So I'm going to run a couple more drops through to clean that out and also lubricate it. Simultaneous is the word I was looking for. And simultaneously clean and lubricate it. Alright, so I got some line on this thing. The advertisements for this said that it came loaded with 10-pound test. I put 8-pound on it. 10's a little much for me, but for this, what I would use this reel for. But at any rate, we got the some line on there, and you can see that the spool is moving. The drag is working. Of course, if I turn that up, it gets really hard to pull. So the drag is working as it should, despite not really knowing on that on that first drag ring, you know, does the bevel side face up or does it face down? I've got it facing, I think I have it facing up, but I'm not sure that it matters. It might be that those drag rings are for a different, you know, or universal for a variety of Johnson reels, and maybe it matters on at least one of them. Maybe it matters on all of them. I don't know. But that's the way I've got it, and it's working, so I don't know. But it's working. All right. So there you have it. A Johnson Laker number 140B, model 140B, made sometime between 1973 and 1976. All cleaned up, serviced, and ready to go fishing again.